In Lawrence, Kansas, for example, we have a masjid with a nice, big, expansive prayer area for the men, with beautiful lighting, brand new doors, wonderful windows have been constructed. It used to be a church and a school, and they did a beautiful job in the men's prayer area. But the women's prayer area, you have to go up 2 or 3 flights of stairs. I can't remember, I've never been there. But you have to go up 2 or 3 flights of stairs and then down a hallway, I remember, and then through this little corridor and down this dark corridor. And then you finally come to the women's prayer area, which is small, dark, and poorly maintained, with lead paint, chipping from the walls, electrical outlets exposed. The ladies have been complaining about the condition of the place. The paint is old, the carpet smells, the ventilation is poor, and nothing's being done about it. We've got fundraisers to renovate the mosque, and so far around $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 has been raised, but you know where all that money has gone. To renovating the men's area. Not a dime has been spent on the women's area yet. It's amazing. And I used to pray with my daughters every night in the masjid, my 3 daughters. They were little, of course, so it didn't attract much attention, but Jamila would be the oldest. She was 3 or 4 in Lawrence at the time, and she'd be scampering around all over the place exploring, and Sarah would be clinging to my pants. In fact, and it was too small, so I'd be holding her in my arms, but it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. As the years went by, that became our nightly routine. Of course, I bribed them a little. I always took them out for ice cream after or something. But I really think they loved going to the masjid almost as much as I did, and almost as much as I loved having them there. But as they got older, some of the rumors started to fly, and people used to make hints, and tell me, they're getting old, Jeff. They should be praying upstairs in the dungeon. Well, they didn't call it the dungeon. But the point is that little by little, my daughters started to get. I used to try to protect them from that, because of course, during the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, the women used to pray in the same courtyard as the men in Medina. And there were no barriers or separations or things like that. So I didn't feel the need to have them go somewhere else. They got older, they just prayed at their little line of 3. They enjoyed it, but there were the stares, there were the uncomfortable glances, there were the remarks to my wife sent through other women, and so forth and so on. And they got, little by little, they got to know about it, and they gave the ladies' prayer area a try. But going back up there in the dark at night through the hallways, alone in that dark and dingy area, it wasn't very comforting to them, and it destroyed the whole experience. But the long and the short of it is my children haven't been to the masjid to pray in about 8 years. I'm not saying they're not Muslims, but I've come to realize that most likely their experience of Islam in America is going to be very different from mine. My experience has always been a community experience. It's experience of faith community. Their experience is going to be one of practicing Islam in virtual isolation. And I wonder what their how that's going to affect everything. Their whole life, their future, their commitment to the faith, their children, links to the religion. It's a big issue. The young people also shared with me that women are denied positions of leadership in most communities in America. It's not everywhere, but in many communities it's true. I went to a community in New Jersey not just long ago. I said, do you know that 4 or 5 years ago I came to a community and they wouldn't allow women to vote in the elections, community elections? And then like 15 ladies raised their hands in the audience, we can't vote in our election. It still happens to this day. Women are denied positions on boards of directors or executive committees in their community. And women converts, I'm trying to rush through some of these, the most visible group of converts to Islam in America, claim, I don't know if this is true, I'm not part of the women's group. The most visible group of converts to Islam in America, and the women are much more tenacious in hanging on to this religion than their male counterparts. It's amazing. A friend of mine, Lynn Jones, wrote about that in her book, how they cling to this religion, many of them by their fingernails. But they claim, at least the ones that emailed me, that they are often ignored, derided, disrespected, marginalized, and disenfranchised in their communities. At least they feel they have been. They claim they're treated like less than second-class citizens in their own countries. And, of course, that hurts. It doesn't help. That's your faith experience. You have to contend with that. Now, the situation is more complicated than that. Because after I wrote my book, I heard from Muslim ladies that were born overseas. They said, no, that's not the problem. The problem is that the men respect the lady converts more than they do the immigrant Muslim ladies, and there's resentment forming and things like that. Maybe all that is true. I don't know what the complexities of it is or the dynamics, but when you have these sort of problems, you have problems. Because if the ladies don't come to the mosque, then the children won't come to the mosque. And if the children don't come to the mosque, you're going to have a hard time getting them to connect to it when they're not children anymore. Now, if you want to get your children in the mosque, if you have any hopes of having them form a viable, heartfelt connection to the mosque, you have to start early. The ladies don't come to the mosque, most of the children will come. A lot of them described in their communities what they call the status ladder. A lot of the ladies describe it this way. In every Muslim community, you have two ladders. There's the men's ladder, and status is sort of determined by a number of things, but mostly they said ethnicity. So if Muslims come from male Muslims come from one background, they're at the top of the ladder. By the way, they said blonde-haired, blue-eyed, white American converts are immediately pushed to the top. Unless they sort of rock the boat and start questioning things, then they fall down the ladder. But then after that, a certain ethnicity, then you have this, and they sort of go down the ladder. But then at the bottom of the ladder, then you have the women's ladder begin. And they say that the women's ladder also has these ethnic sort of divisions, but it also has this kind of division that a woman's credibility, Muslim credibility, is sort of inversely proportional to how long she has lived in the United States. Inversely proportional, you know what I mean? So that the shorter the lady has lived here, the more credibility she has, more respect she has. So those that were just got off the plane, maximum Islamic respect. People look to her for, she's untainted by the Western society. And then those who have lived longer, a little less, and then longer and longer, and then down towards the bottom of the ladder, then comes the next generation. And then below the next generation comes the converts. At least that's the way the ladies perceive it. I don't know if it is true. I don't know if it is true. Like I said, I've never been a part of the ladies' community in my community. But if that is the perception, then there's a major problem. There needs to be addressed. I could go on and talk about the issues that were presented to me about women, but for the lack of time, I'm going to move ahead.